So welcome to this video, guys. This video is going to be about reducing fractions that are kind of difficult, and I say kind of because the example that I've chosen is not the most difficult one, but this is at a difficulty level that is quite acceptable, I think, for getting started with those kind of tasks. So this is the example that we are going to work on, and I can say right from the beginning, this was kind of something that always terrified me in the beginning when I solved those kind of fractions first, and I think I can relate to that, and a lot of you also feel the same about those kind of questions. And how can a typical exam question look like based on this? It could be, for example, solve those fractions and reduce them up until the last point that you can reduce them. To get started right away, I would say that we first of all look at what we have, and in this kind of case we first realize, or we first need to know, that we can first of all ignore the numerators. So that means what we do now is first we get started with the denominators, and the first step is basically find the roots of the denominators. And the reason for that is pretty simple, because if you know what needs to be put in for x so that the denominator is 0, which is basically something that doesn't work, because if the denominator is 0, the whole fraction doesn't work mathematically, so you cannot calculate further with that. However, if you know that, you can do some changes to the fractions and you can rewrite the fractions. But you will see after I'm getting done with that. So first of all, the root of x plus 10 is pretty simple. It is x equal to minus 10, because minus 10 plus 10, this will be 0. For this one it's a bit more difficult, however, ABC or PQ formula, depending on which one you use more frequently, but the video on that is still coming. So just to skip that first, I will show you the result. So x1 is also minus 10 and x2 is minus 2. With this knowledge now we can move further, and as I said, we do this in order to find a way to rewrite our denominators. For this fraction we don't actually need to rewrite anything. I mean, what we can do is we can pull the minus sign into the numerator, so that we have minus 5 in the numerator, and for simplicity, and you will see why, we will put x plus 10 in brackets. However, in this fraction a lot of things change. However, the numerator stays constant first, 7x plus 12, as we had before. And now what we do now is basically we rewrite the denominator in a kind of a null form. So what we will be left is x plus 10 in brackets times x plus 2 in brackets. And now you can see what we were aiming at with that. Our aim was now basically to find a way that the right fraction matches or looks similar to the left fraction, or it could be also the other way around, depending on what you have given and depending on where you're aiming at. However, it is in most cases easier to expand fractions than to reduce them in general. So just keep that in mind as an additional tip, because you will see now what happens next. So from this point on now, we see that the main denominator should look something similar to this denominator. I mean, we could also try to reduce this thing by x plus 2. However, this is going to be a bit more difficult, so what we will do now is we will expand this fraction by x plus 2 in brackets, and what we are going to be left with is then minus 5 times x plus 2 in the numerator, and x plus 10 times x plus 2 in brackets in the denominator. The right side stays the same, 7x plus 12 over x plus 10 times x plus 2 as we had before. And from this point on now, you're almost done. So the most difficult thing was basically to get the same denominator. And now, only thing you need to do is now to basically simplify both fractions. And however, we still have to do the main calculation in this task. But I mean, there's no really difficult step more in between. What you can do now is basically get started with is factor this thing out. So make the calculation easier. 5x. So minus 5x because minus 5 times x, and then minus 5 times 2 minus 10. Plus 7x because the plus sign stays then in front of the 7x, and also plus 12. Denominator, now we have the main denominator, which is x plus 10. Now this looks a bit messy. X plus 10 times x plus 2. And now just rewrite this whole thing and basically move everything and rearrange everything so that it looks a bit nicer and that you don't have those unnecessary calculations more in between. What we'll be left with is 2x plus 2, because 7x minus 5x, 2x, and 12 minus 10 is 2. And in the denominator we can basically leave it like that, so x plus 10 times x plus 2, which is then basically the final result that we want to have then at the very end of the whole calculation. And it's just as simple as that. As the key takeaway for this kind of calculation, I would suggest that you again maybe watch what I did in between now. And the main thing and the most important thing I would say is that you learn that it is easier to expand fractions than to reduce them, because if you realize that, you won't have any difficulty whatsoever to find the common denominator, which we had to find out in this specific example over here as well. So as far as the main takeaway from this session. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope it was helpful. Other than that, subscribe to my channel and follow me on my social media for updates on the videos. And also, if you have specific questions on mathematical problems, maybe tips or tricks for learning, then either send me a message through social media or comment down below. And I hope you will be here for my next video as well.